And we're live.
Just double checking, keep going.
Apologies for the slow start, folks. Technical difficulties on our end. First TikTok live stream and, learning experience. So we're going to wait a few minutes for people to pile into the stream, and then we're going to start announcing the winners of the Aragon, World of Aragon merch / Fractalverse merch giveaway. And I'm very excited about this because, hey, I like giving you guys stuff. If I'm a little bit out of breath, it's because I just got a wild idea to climb the small mountain / large hill next to my house about 40 minutes ago, and I just got back from that. So, fortunately, I didn't break my neck coming down the hill, but I did run into some den with an animal in it, so that was exciting. Anyway, welcome everyone. I will be answering questions. You do not have to have entered the giveaway to ask questions. In fact, why don't we start off with a question or two before we start announcing the winners? If we have any questions, ask away, my friends. I am here at your disposal, although I will not be spoiling Murtag. So sorry, everything with regard to the plot of Murtag is a giant no comment. Although from my end, I'm extraordinarily excited for you and lots of people around the world to be actually reading this book. After, we're coming up on 12 years since Inheritance came out, 11 years, and quite a bit longer since Aragon was published. I mean, this year is the 20th year anniversary of Aragon, which is both very strange to me and pretty amazing that people are still reading the book. So I'm excited. And yeah, the process of writing Murtag was also quite the ride. There were small kids in the house and deadlines, both with Murtag and Fractal Noise, but it got done, and I'm very proud of the final result. So I think we have a question here
from Ryan.
Let's see. Ryan Lane asks, is the next Fractalverse novel steampunk? I've talked about this a little bit, that I want to do a YA steampunk in the Fractalverse universe. I really want to write something that's a little lighter than some of my recent novels. However, quite honestly, what I do next is definitely going to be influenced a bit by the response that Murtag gets. I have a lot of ideas for stories set in the world of Aragon, and if, Murtag blows everyone's socks off, that would definitely be a strong motivation to move one or two of those higher in the list of things I want to write. Same time, I love the Fractalverse and want to keep writing stories in the Fractalverse. So I guess the short answer is I am undecided, and I feel no need to make a decision immediately because I just came off of a year solid of editing and revisions, and I'm now about to spend about 40 days on the road touring and doing events, which I'm very much looking forward to, but it will take a lot of energy. And after all of that, I will take a deep breath and reevaluate. And who knows, I may need to work on the Aragon television show as well. So, there's a lot of balls sort of in the air at the moment. Let's see, we've got a question here from Matt B. See, I know I'm getting older because I'm starting to do the thing where I hold things away from me to read the questions. Will you be adding cities to your tour? No, not at the moment. There's a couple reasons for that. One, this is already a big tour. If you don't know, I'm going to be touring in the United States, with a stopover in Toronto starting November 7th to the latter part of November. And then I'm going to be hopping over to the UK and Europe for a number of weeks, and I'll be finishing up around the middle of December. That's a lot of time for me to be away from my family, especially since my wife and I have very young kids. So I'm really cramming in as much as I can reasonably do. If I had a little more personal time and space, I probably would do a bigger tour, like Australia and New Zealand. I toured down there for Inheritance and absolutely loved my visits, and I would love to go back again sometime. But again, I can't be away from home too much. And also, if you want me to write the next book, you can't have me touring for too long.
A lot of people are asking this one.
Let's see. Any news about the Aragon TV show? Well, no. That is the short version. We were just getting things off the ground when the Writers Guild started striking, and then, of course, the Screen Actors Guild, SAG, went into striking as well. and everything's on hold, which is true of a lot of big projects in Hollywood. Well, projects in general, big and small. If it was union, it was on hold. The writer's strike has just been resolved, and I'm just honestly waiting now to hear a call from my agents and figure out what's going to happen next. So fingers crossed on that front. I think the studios have been reevaluating a lot of projects they did have in the pipeline, but Disney has been committed to, Percy Jackson and some other big investments. So we shall see. I remain optimistic. As I know things, I will share them with you, assuming it's something I can share. Unfortunately, with this stuff, there's a lot of behind the scenes back and forth. And it's like, well, if we talk with this guy, would he be interested? If you're wondering who we're looking for, it's a showrunner. And what is a showrunner? Just like the title implies, a showrunner is the person who runs a television show. Showrunners are to television what directors are to film. Although a showrunner may not actually direct the episodes of a television show, they're the person who coordinates everything, often shapes the story, the look, often writes quite a few of the episodes. So having a good showrunner in place, someone who's experienced and can, do justice to the story and the world is crucial, especially since I'm going to be writing on the show and producing the show as well. So it needs to be someone who gets along with me and I get along with, and we can have a good partnership. So that's there aren't that many people in the world with that skill set. So we're hopeful we will have the right people in place soon, and I'll have news for you.
One more question before we go to the giveaway?
I think we're going to do one more question, and then we're going to start the giveaway. Giveaway announcements, I should say. So the question is, if I had a dragon, what color would it be? I mean, that's easy. That's easy. Obviously blue, like Saphira. Of course, since I'm partially colorblind, what I see as the most amazing blue is probably what you guys would see as some variation of purple. Not a particularly pinky purple, but, more on the bluer side, says the colorblind guy. But I do find rich dark blue just amazingly delicious, and I am very, very fond of it. So a red dragon would be nice too, but blue's better. All right.
One last question. And then
oh, Matthew. I suppose I have to address this at some point. What did the Manoa tree take from Aragon in Book 3, Brissinger? Well, I'll be happy to tell you in Book 5. Well, see, my answer has always been I'll tell you in Book 5, except now Book 5 is going to happen after Murtagh, so I'm not sure if I should call it Book 6 or Book 7, but you will find out what the Manoa tree took from Aragon, and I hope to write that sooner rather than later. Especially as I'm getting more white in my beard, I'm looking at my notes and my story ideas and going, okay, I have to start writing this stuff or I'm never going to get to write it and you'll never get to read it. So we're going to start with the giveaway, and I am going to be going through the various gifts, I suppose, and announcing the winners. And I hope you have a good time with this. We've got some cool stuff here, including some things that we are not actually offering in our merch store over on Etsy because, some of these are one-offs. Sometimes we haven't had manufacturers that we can work with long-term. But we also do have things that you can buy if you're interested. But either way, we're going to start with this color map, which is actually a metal print. This is printed on aluminum, I think, and this is the color map that originally appeared in the Barnes & Noble Collector's Edition of Aragon from a couple of years ago. My awesome assistant, Emanuela, who is behind the camera.
Ow, hello.
She's the one who colored this because, again, you don't want the colorblind guy coloring things. So we are giving this away to, shall we see the winner? Ryan G. Congratulations, Ryan G. I hope you enjoy this. I'm actually very, very partial to these metal prints. And
we can't sign it, right? Because it'll smudge.
Yeah, I was just trying to think that I'm not sure I can sign it. I will sign it with a Sharpie, but it might smudge on the metal. So if it smudges, you can just wipe it off with alcohol or something, and it'll be good to go. But I will try to sign it for you.
You want to do it right now? On camera so people can see?
I suppose I can try signing this on camera, but then everyone can counterfeit my signature.
Oh.
As if it hasn't been seen a million times. All right, to Ryan and the year. Now, You might notice I have simplified my signature this year from the I've dropped out the Christopher basically, and you can blame that on the publishers because they had me sign over 30,000 tip-in sheets this year. Tip-in sheets are loose sheets of basically book pages that you sign, and then the printer binds them into the book so people can get signed copies without having to go into book signing. But I am enormously grateful for that opportunity, but man, 30,000 takes a toll on your wrist. So, next up, we have one of my favorite items here. This is, let me get free hands here. This is a tapestry of the map of Alagasia. And it's a little hard to show off on the camera here, but hopefully you can get the idea. It's super thick, high quality, durable. I actually want to get one of these up on one of my walls, maybe in my office, so I can look at it when I'm writing Alagasia / World of Aragon related things.
I know, Guy.
We have a winner for this, and the winner is Sarah M. Congratulations, Sarah. I hope you enjoy this tapestry as much as I do. I am going to sign this, but I'm going to sign this off camera because I need a solid surface and it's going to wiggle all around if I do it on my leg here. So you will be getting a signed tapestry. All right, we are moving on to, this is Brissinger Sling Pack. So if you are a bicyclist or, go around town and you need a little pack, this is the cool sort of thing to have. And of course, I love the symbol.
It's
the
only
Brissinger
one
symbol.
that's around.
Yeah, there's only one of these in the existence right now, so I still like it though. All right, and the winner is, who do we have? Michaela W. Congratulations, Michaela. You have a one-of-a-kind piece of Brissinger merch, and I will try to sign this.
Where'd it go?
Although my Sharpie has disappeared on me.
Oh, here. Aha.
All right. And I'm going to get your name in here. Hopefully I can spell it properly.
And both the metal map isn't for sale, but the tapestry is.
Yeah, the tapestry is for sale. The metal map is not. All right. There you go, Michaela. Whoa! All signed. Hopefully you get a glimpse of that. Okay, now this next one is a particular favorite of mine. We have a Brissinger backpack. And this does, I actually have one of these for myself, and I don't believe we're offering these for sale anymore.
We aren't.
No,
we're
we're
not.
not.
Get it regularly.
Yeah, we couldn't get the manufacturer to produce these regularly, but it's got the Brissinger symbol on it, and there is a slot in here for a computer, which is
Show
pretty
them
cool.
the color inside if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can find the right zipper here.
Oh.
Wrong zipper. Yeah, too many zippers on this thing. Too many zippers on this. We'll get it. There we go. That's right. It's Brissinger blue on the inside. So, and the winner for this backpack is Lester R. Congratulations, Lester. Again, I'm going to sign this one off camera because I need to use a silver Sharpie, and all I have is a black Sharpie. Black will not show up on this, but it will be signed, Lester. So, thank you for participating in the giveaway. All right. Now we got a couple of my favorite things also. Actually, all these are my favorite things, but this one is definitely near and dear to my heart. We have a hardcover World of Aragon notebook. This is available actually in the Etsy store, but it's lined paper. It's got the World of Aragon logo on it, and the lucky winner is Aaron W. Congratulations, Aaron. I'm going to sign this right inside the notebook. Hopefully you don't mind that. And there we go. Oh, I guess I got to show you the signature. Sorry. True story. I've actually, on book tour, woken up in the middle of the night with my hand signing on the pillow next to me because I've, like, muscle memory. I've been signing so many books on tour. So we have the hardcover World of Aragon notebook, and then we have a spiral-bound World of Aragon notebook, which actually has the logo on both sides, and has a cool blue fire image on the inside. So this is actually really handy for travel, and because you can just open it up, lay it flat. And the winner is Aaron W. Congratulations, Aaron. Again, your notebook gets defaced by the author. Hope you don't mind. To Aaron. All right. This is actually the first time I've signed either of these two notebooks. So the two of you have a unique collectible item. Okay. Let me see. We have now two Fractalverse journals. Now, if you haven't seen these before, these are not for sale. These were made as giveaway items when To Sleep in a Sea of Stars was coming out. They're actually a little plushy, which is cool. Usually, they're hard, but they're kind of like upholstered notebooks. And they are not lined, which was actually a specific request by me because I prefer non-lined notebooks a lot of times because then I can sketch and doodle around in them. But we have one winner for each of these, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So the first winner is Leanne L. Hopefully I said your name correctly. I'm going to sign this one for you right now. To Leanne.
So did you not get
Yeah.
the Fractalverse
There
one?
you go.
I didn't get that.
And I think we have a little bit of a...
Just go on to the pins.
We have a technical difficulty. We're not quite sure who won the second Fractalverse journal, so
We'll
we're
get
gonna
back to that.
come back to that in a second. Here's the one for Leanne. Now, this is cool. These are actually fairly new. We have, I'm going to hold this up. Hopefully you can see this pretty well. We have a red acrylic pin with Thorn and Murtagh writing on him, sort of in a cute chibi style. And these are really nice. They catch the light beautifully. And
There are 3 of them that I'm giving away.
the 3 of them we're giving away. I only have 1 at the moment, though.
Mm-hmm.
So the winner
For the
is
first one.
Aaron R. Congratulations, Aaron. I unfortunately cannot sign these as they are too small, but I think that the cuteness hopefully makes up for the lack of a signature. And the 2 other winners are Max D and Isaiah W, I believe. And all 3 of you will be getting these Thorn Murtagh pins. So congratulations.
And everybody will be notified via email individually who's winning.
Yes, everyone who wins, you will get an email specifically to you letting you know that you did win and will be getting the merchandise. Okay, let me move on to my second set of notes. We do know the winner for our second Fractalverse To Sleep in a Sea of Stars journal, and it is James A. Congratulations, James. I will now deface your notebook for you. To James. All right. I actually have one of these notebooks I'm writing in myself because the problem is I have too many notebooks that I've started and I still need to finish. So every once in a while, I'll just pick one and say, I'm finishing this notebook. And it's so satisfying when it's finally full. All right. Next one, we have a pair, sort of a pair to the red pin. We have a little one acrylic pen with Saphira and Aragon, and of course it's lovely and blue and in the same style as the Thorn one. And the winner for this is Eugene M. Congratulations, Eugene. Christopher F. What a good name, Christopher. And Jordan N. All 3 of you will be getting a pin. You will be notified by email, and I hope you enjoy it. Again, unfortunately, I can't sign the pin as it's just a bit small for that, but I hope you enjoy it all the same. And last but not least, if I can speak, we have a metal pin with the Witch and the Weird Cat. And let's see if I can get this in camera.
Yeah.
There we go. Thanks for the help. And actually, if you haven't seen this pin, it has the symbol for Weirda at the bottom, which of course means fate, which felt appropriate for this pin. And this one's a metal one, so it's got a little more heft. And the winner of this particular pin is Mark C. Richard B. And Kirsten H. Congratulations, Kirsten, Richard, Mark, Jonah, Jessica, and Chris. I guess we're giving out quite a few of these. All right. One, two, three, four, five, 6 of these pins will be going out. I hope all of you enjoy them. Honestly, one of the reasons I've been missing going to conventions is so that I haven't been able to wear some of the pins that we've been making, like the little one pin or the Brissinger symbol or the Zarok pin. And I'm like, I want to wear this stuff at convention. So hopefully some of you will have that opportunity before I do. Do we have an additional?
More questions would be good, but we have 3 coming.
And 3
Questions from fans.
Oh, yes. We're going to be doing questions now. I think we're done with the giveaway for the moment. This is probably not the last of our giveaways, but for the moment, that's the end of this one. And by the way, if any of you are if you're curious, if you haven't heard, I'm going to be at New York City Comic Con this year, which is middle of October, so next month. And I am going to be doing multiple signings, both at the Random House booth, at the Tor booth, and I'll also be giving a sort of a spotlight panel presentation on sort of celebrating the 20th anniversary of Aragon. So if you were in the area and you can make it to the convention, I hope you can stop by and say hi. So we're going to answer some questions now.
Oh, never mind. Go ahead.
We're going to answer some questions now. Aragon's birth date. Well, if you're asking for an actual, number, I'd have to go consult my Dwarven calendar that I kind of used for the chronology in the series. If you're asking, when in the year he was born, he has his birthday in, of course, the first book, Aragon, which is, I'm trying to think when that was. I mean, it was after winter, so it was in the spring, probably. Not probably, it was in the late spring is when his birthday actually is. But I don't have an actual date for you off the top of my head. But good question. All right. Next question. Have you ever considered trying to make Aragon an Aragon tabletop RPG? Yes, and in fact, a friend who is also a fan and I have actually built an entire game engine for an Aragon tabletop RPG. And we're just currently looking for a home for it. When and if that changes, I'll let you know, but I'm very proud of the engine that we've built. Actually, it's mostly his work. We just need to find the right publisher and place for it. When and if that happens, I'll let you know. But I would love to put that out in the world and see people playing, RPG games with a magic system designed entirely around the ancient language, which, originally we looked at using D&D, using one of those systems, the pre-existing systems, but it just doesn't work with the ancient language as well as we wanted. So we were like, let's start from scratch. And that was a lot of fun. So that's been something going on in the background as well. So I've definitely considered it, want to see it happen. The only difficult part of it is that because of the film television contracts with Fox/Disney, I can't sell things like dice or figurines or actual boards to play. You never know. All right, I think we're back. Sorry about that, technical difficulties and all that. All I was saying is that I am working to produce books at a more regular pace than I have in the past. This year, publishing 2 books in 1 year for the first time ever. And I hope to, if not at that pace, keep putting books out every year or every other year, depending on life circumstances and the size of the book. All right, let's get another question here. Can you demonstrate the elven hand greeting? No, I can't. I'm not an elf, and this is way too blurry and janky for me to even attempt that, so I'll leave that gesture up to your imagination. Okay. What happened to Aragon, the original dragon rider, who bonded the dragons and the elves? Great question. No comment. But you will be getting an answer to that in the future. All right. Would you ever write a prequel? I'd love a Selena/Brom story, or maybe an original Aragon. I've thought about it. I've certainly talked about writing Brom's story in the past. My only hesitation is that, as with so many prequels, you know how it ends. and that's a difficult sell. It doesn't mean it can't be a great book, and of course, so many great books, we still enjoy them even when we know how they actually end. You know, it's not like, you know, Don Quixote is a mystery, or The Count of Monte Cristo is a mystery, but sometimes it is to new readers. So I don't know. I've thought about it, and if I ever really feel a certain story that is a prequel, I will certainly tackle it, but I am not committed to that at the moment. But we'll see. I think of all the prequels I've thought about, Brahm's story is the most compelling, because there's just so much rich, dramatic material in his life. All right, good question. A lot of good questions. What color would your writer's sword be? I actually am going to say red. I do like red for a weapon. It's a good color for a weapon. If that wasn't available, then maybe black. You know, that way you're not going to reflect in your enemy's eyes and give away your position by accident. Right. Thank you for all the questions. Let's see. If a dragon rider has a
Kid. Is it my hand?
Kid.
will the kid have any connection to their parents' dragon? Not per se, but I have to imagine that I think it would depend who was the rider in among the parents. You know, if the mother was the dragon rider and she was pregnant while bonded with the dragon, there would definitely be mental connection between the baby developing inside of her and the dragon that she's joined with. So I think that there'd be a very strong bond there. If it were the father who was the rider, not the mother, then it would probably be a little bit different. Either way, I would assume that the dragon would consider the child part of their pack, if you will, their flock, and would go above and beyond for that child. But there might not be necessarily an actual connection, but generally fondness and familiarity, as one would expect among close family members.
Follow-up question: if both parents were dragon riders, would the child be a dragon rider?
Good question. If both parents were dragon riders, would the child be a dragon rider as well? Not necessarily. This is not hereditary stuff. Maybe a slightly higher proclivity toward that, but it's the dragons who choose who they bond with, and the dragons are selfish. They know they're going to be bonded with this person for the rest of their lives. Essentially, they're not going to do anyone any favors. They are always going to make the choice they feel is best for themselves and perhaps the wider world. But and I dislike, it makes me twitch a little bit, the idea that being a dragon rider is always hereditary. And I know Brahm and Aragon, Morzan and Murtagh, I know, but extenuating circumstances with Galbatorix and the fall of the dragon riders and only a couple eggs being left, the dragons had to choose the best of a bad situation. Although I still think Saphira would have chosen Aragon regardless. All right. Would like to know when the next book in the Fractalverse series might be coming out. I mean, I'd love it to come out tomorrow if I could write it that fast. So it's just going to depend on how wiped I get touring for Murtagh, as well as whatever's going on with the Aragon or the To Sleep in a Sea of Stars television show. If either one of those starts ramping up, that's what I'm going to be doing. No ifs, ands, or buts. That takes priority. So I would like to say, and the thing is even if I were to turn in a manuscript now, it's already too late to publish anything next year. So the soonest you're going to see a new book from me is probably 2025, and I'm going to have to hustle to make that happen. So for Murtagh to publish this year, I was told by my publisher that I had to deliver it by end of January last year. And that was a fast cycle for a publisher, all things considered, especially for a book this size with a promotional campaign of this size. But I certainly will write the next one as fast as I can. Okay. Will we ever get more stories on Oramus? Yes, and including one that's tangential to Oramus. For a very long time, right when I finished Inheritance, I've been wanting to write a story about what happened to or Mrs. Sword. Actually, I don't know if I've ever actually said that live, but yeah, that's a story I've been wanting to write for a very long time. All right.
Oh, and we are answering questions from both Instagram on the TikTok live
All right.
and stuff. People are asking.
We're answering questions from both TikTok and Instagram. So
And the giveaway.
awesome. Will we see more of Arya and Fiernan? Yes. In fact, I think I was tweeting about this about a month ago that I just had my first real, honest to goodness, full length book idea with Aragon as a main character. Because I haven't had any more stories to tell with Aragon specifically, but I finally have one, and of course Arya would be involved with that as well, and I hope to write that someday. Can a dragon become a shade? What if its rider does? Well, yes, both a rider and a dragon can become a shade. I would imagine that if a rider became a shade, that the dragon might just squish them with their paw and not let it happen. I can't imagine a dragon letting their rider become a shade and not doing something about it, even if it were the most extreme of actions. If a dragon were to be... Basically, any living creature can become a shade. If a dragon were to become a shade, it would be pretty friggin' terrifying. I mean, there'd be almost no stopping that. That would definitely be in a fairly high on the apocalyptic level of events. Well, I suppose it depends on how much protection the dragon had against magic as a shade and how well the spirits were able to use the dragon to work magic and, protect the dragon's body in order to wreak havoc. But either way, it would not be a good situation and probably would be a good thing for a story. My brain is racing here. I have thought about it before, but it is a pretty terrifying idea. What power does knowing the name of the ancient language give a user? Essentially gives you root control over the operating system. That's what it does. It lets you alter the language, and it also lets you undo any spells that already exist. That's what the ancient language lets you do. You can also create words and have them imbued with the power of the ancient language so they can act as spells. It's the master key that unlocks the door and gives you access to the mechanics of the language, which is why it's so incredibly dangerous for, random magicians to know that word. I think that about covers it. There might be some fringe uses that I'm blanking on at the moment, but those are the big uses. You could, with the Name of Names, undo the ancient language and erase its effects and undo its link to magic so that the words in the ancient language are simply ordinary words and don't actually have any effect on the world around you. So you could unbind the ancient language from the energy that is magic using the Name of Names, which you can imagine what a almost catastrophic event that would be, because every single spell that depends on the ancient language would be undone, which in some cases wouldn't do anything, but wherever you would have energy bound up in an object, whether to be triggered later or drawn from like a gem and a sword, that sort of thing, that could be released. And, there'd be a lot of booms across the land. Very bad stuff. All right. Can dragons use ancient language magic instead of wild dragon magic? I would imagine so, but we haven't really seen it in the series, have we? And I think part of that is dragons don't want to. I have actually had this idea for a story of a long time of a dragon who wants to study magic in a scholarly manner. I think that'd be really interesting. Probably would be an older dragon, but I see no reason why a dragon couldn't do that unless there's something physical, in the way their minds work that prevents them from easily accessing the energy that is magic, which could be the case. I mean, there are humans and elves and dwarves who are like that. Roran is like that, for example. It could be that dragons can only really access that power subconsciously, without really meaning to at times. It happens when it happens, if it needs to happen, but they can't consciously make it happen. Of course, again, if you had a dragon who worked at it and studied it for a century, who knows what would be possible. But again, I think a lot of dragons just don't care. They're like, I can make magic happen when I need to. I don't need the ancient language. I don't need to be bound by your silly conventions and rules. I'm a dragon.
Last one for magic.
Can the ancient language name change? Not without someone doing it consciously. The name of the ancient language is set, because if it constantly changes, then if you know it and it changes without you realizing, now you're going to have to figure it out all over again. So it doesn't change unless you consciously, someone who knows it and knows what they're doing consciously changes it. Okay, are there other continents unexplored on their Earth? Absolutely, and in fact, one of my upcoming projects is doing a full globe map of the world of Aragon. Something I've wanted to do for a long time. I finally have the time to do it. It's just a pain in the butt because I'm working very hard at actually making the distances consistent, which is not something that the original map does 100%. Look, the original map, my thought is always, it's almost like an in-world artifact. It's drawn using the techniques and knowledge of the people of Alagasia, and unless you get a map done by the dragon riders who are flying around in the air, there are going to be quite a few inaccuracies. One inaccuracy that I've mentioned before is that Palancar Valley proportionally should be quite a bit smaller to the spine, and that's something I'm currently working on, that global map. So you'll get to see those other continents. And, of course, wonder at the stories that take place therein. All right, any tips for aspiring authors? I have 100,000 words done on a fantasy series. Well, congratulations. I mean, 100,000 words is no joke. That is a serious amount of words. For comparison, Aragon, which is the shortest book in the Inheritance cycle, is 156,000 words in the hardcover release. Inheritance is about 270,000 words, something like that. I forget the exact numbers, but you get the idea. So 100,000 words is no joke. I'm not sure what advice to give you because obviously you're producing work and I have no idea what you need to work on to improve as a writer. For me, I've found that studying grammar has been enormously helpful. I've found that getting edited by someone who knows what they're doing has been enormously helpful. I've learned an awful lot from editing. I've found continuing to read books on story structure to be incredibly helpful, and I wish I'd done a lot more of it even back in the day. Some books that I've read recently that have been helpful, there's one called Into the Woods, something about a 5-act story structure. I forget the full title, but it's not Into the Woods the play. It's Into the Woods, something about a 5-act story structure. Absolutely love that book. Highly recommend it. His whole discussion of like the midpoint of a story is quite interesting. Anatomy of a Story by John Truby. The fun thing is the Into the Woods book criticizes anatomy of the story. So you read one book and you go, this is amazing, this is the system I'll use for the rest of my books, and then you read the other book and they like rip the first book apart, and you're like, oh yeah, no, I'm gonna go, I learned something new here. Also Dan O'Bannon, who wrote the original screenplay for Alien. He also wrote the original Total Recall movie. He's got a book on screenwriting, which is quite interesting. I find that the best books on story structure out there are from screenwriters. And I think it's because screenwriting / film scripts are essentially structure. They're nothing but structure. And so screenwriters spend a lot of time thinking about it. Obviously, not everything they do in a film will work in a book, but it can still be incredibly helpful in thinking about your own work. And lastly, try to have fun. If you're not having fun on some level, why are you doing it? And I think if you're having fun with it, readers can tell, and they will have fun reading your work also. So sort of a combination of all of those. I am a big fan of plotting stories out beforehand. I find that it makes the writing itself much faster. As an example, with To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, I did not have as solid of a plot as I needed, and writing the first draft took forever, and then I had to do a huge amount of revisions, and that's why it took so long to publish that book. By comparison, I really tried to nail down the plot of Murtagh, and I had the first draft in 3.5 months. Now, there were revisions. There definitely were things I needed to rethink and expand on and massage and finesse, but that's normal for the editing and revision process. So, but I wouldn't have been able to get to that stage as fast as I did if I hadn't really sat down and thought about my, character arcs and story beats and how everything interlocks. So, hopefully that's of some help. Good luck with your writing. Don't give up. Any word on To Sleep in a Sea of Stars 2? Well, I've got the title. I can tell you the title, but I think my publisher might hit me over the head if I do that. I have... Okay. To Sleep in a Sea of Stars is one of 3 books that I originally envisioned for the Fractalverse. The other 2 books take place at the same time as To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, but do not feature Kira or the other characters from To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. Now, I've written To Sleep. I really want to write those other 2 books, and I might just write them back to back and knock them out because they provide a huge amount of context for what is going on in the Fractalverse. And no one but me actually knows the larger picture at the moment, because there's a huge thing that essentially is not revealed yet to readers. And if I go and write the sequel to Sleep in a Sea of Stars, which I very much want to, we're going to be missing that context. So I'm kind of in this weird position, both with the world of Aragon and the Fractalverse, where I have created all of these enormous story structures and interesting stories, and if I don't really start knocking them out, readers are going to have no idea what I'm doing. And of course, each individual book needs to be satisfying on its own terms, which is a challenge. So no specific word on book 2 following To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, but I really want to write it. And I know I say that for almost every story idea, but that's true. I don't think of story ideas that I don't want to write. So if I've thought of it, I want to write it. Okay. If a magician from Alagasia ended up in our world, could they use the energy stored in capacitors and batteries? What a great question. Theoretically, yes, but the magicians in Alagasia have yet to discover how to directly absorb or rechannel electricity, thermal radiation, light. So that's something they've talked about. It's brought up in the inheritance cycle, but they haven't quite figured it out, or if someone has figured it out, it's not general knowledge. So theoretically, yes, you could take that electrical potential, that electrical energy, you could discharge it into a spell to power the spell, in essence. I actually wrote a big chunk in Murtagh where Murtagh was pondering the nature of energy and magic, and ultimately it got cut because it was too deep in the weeds and it wasn't relevant to the story at that point. But I was even having him wonder about, water pushes a wheel, like a water wheel, to grind flour, grain, and where does that energy come from? Does it make the water colder? He was trying to figure it out, but it wasn't relevant to the story, so we chopped a lot of that out. But it's something that people in Alagasia, in the world of Aragon, definitely are trying to figure out. All right, will we ever meet a baby dragon from Saphira and Fiernan? If you're asking if the 2 of them are going to have a baby together, no comment. If you're asking if we'll ever meet a baby that either one of them has sired or, given birth to, yes, probably. But I don't want to give you specifics at the moment. So many of these things, I just want to tell you, go read Murtagh and then we'll talk, but you have to wait till November for that. Are the steps meant to be...
The little white, the red
Oh,
steps
oh.
behind you, yeah.
Yeah, are these footprints here behind me meant to be Aragon's first journey from the first book? Yes, they are. This is the journey that Aragon followed in the first book. And this blanket / map is available in the Etsy store. So you can get it, and I'll tell you, this is a very Montanan thing to say. For various reasons with the babies and stuff, I was sleeping in a very cold part of the house when I was trying to finish Murtagh, just so I could get, 6 to 8 hours of sleep and function while I was working on the book. And I used this blanket to stay warm, and it's really warm. And this is coming from a guy who's, we get down to minus 40 here in the winter sometimes. So this is a nice warm blanket if you need it. All right. What is Angela's sword Tinkledeath made out of? Well, she says in the book it's made out of diamond. No? There's a lot of magic involved, but it's basically diamond. So carbon. It's made of carbon. It's made of pencil lead. It's made of lamp black, just squeezed. Are there any drawings from the different lands? Well, funny you should mention that. Well, I don't know if this qualifies. I just did a painting of Mount Arngor, which is where the Dragon Rider Academy Dragonhold is, where Aragon is raising and helping train the new Dragon Riders. So maybe that counts. We're looking at doing an art print of that painting, so hopefully you'll see it before the end of the year. I haven't done anything from those other lands aside from that. But again, I'm working on a map of the entire world and globe of the world of Aragon, so that should satisfy that requirement. Will Kira and Falcone ever get together again? That's a great question. Look. They are going to meet again. What happens when they meet? I'm not going to tell you because, honestly, I'm not quite sure yet either. So I'm too far out from book 2 in To Sleep in a Sea of Stars to give you a definite answer. Even if I had a definite answer, I wouldn't want to spoil it for you. But they are going to meet again, and it's probably going to be written from Falcone's point of view, which should be fun. What do dragon voices sound like in your head? Oh, man. It depends on the dragon, but if we're talking about Saphira, I always kind of imagined her as, deeper than a human voice, but almost like the sort of voice you would expect from a trained opera singer. Someone who, really has a lot of control and depth and power, while still sounding, like in the case of Saphira, feminine. I actually think Jennifer Hale, who did the audiobook for To Sleep in a Sea of Stars and Fractal Noise, and is an amazing, award-winning voice actress, could do a fantastic dragon voice. Specifically Saphira's voice, of course. And I'm a little biased because she did do a bit of Saphira's voice in the Aragon video game, but that doesn't count. It does depend on the voice, on the dragon, though. If we're talking about Shuriken or Vermund from The Fork, the Witch, and the Worm, both of which were enormous dragons, I would imagine the voice, even their mental voice, to be kind of like a, almost like an avalanche speaking to you. Just so much depth and resonance and bass that your whole mind shakes from it. Either way, small or large, I think speaking with a dragon definitely leaves an imprint on you. All right, will we ever know what drove the elves from their homeland? Quite possibly you will. Next question. There's actually a lot of lore in the world of Aragon that I haven't gone into because it wasn't relevant to Aragon's story. And you're going to see in Murtagh, I'm been out walking and I've got allergies. I've actually started chipping away at that in Murtagh. I'm cracking the door open a little bit to the larger mythos and some of the things that are going on. So I'm hoping that when Murtagh comes out and you actually get to read it, that people are going to be running to the Aragon subreddit and Twitter and screaming, going, "Oh my god, do you realize what this means?" Okay, will the dwarves ever forgive Murtagh? It's going to take an awful lot for them to forgive Murtagh, and he might have to do something incredibly self-sacrificing for them as a race, for them to even consider not trying to lop his head off if they get the chance. I mean, dwarves are pragmatic. They're not going to suicide themselves just to try to take Murtagh out, but at the same time, they have no love for him, And even if he helped defeat Galbatorix, they still want to make him pay for Hrothgar's death. And to be fair, Aragon did swear to Auric, I believe, that he would avenge Hrothgar's death, and that oath does still hold. So it's something that will need to be dealt with. These are some great questions. Will the TV series be live action or animated? It will be live action. Although it's really expensive to do live action because the catering bill for feeding the dragons on set is just sky high. You don't even want to know how many cows and sheep they have to shovel into the dragons. But it's going to be live action. Who was the passing stranger? I'm not sure who this refers to. There are lots of passing strangers in the books. If we're talking about To Sleep in the Sea of Stars, I do answer that question in my afterword. If you were asking about the inheritance cycle, I'm not quite sure who you're referring to. Sorry. Feel free to clarify in the questions. What question was Tenga searching for when Aragon met him? Great question. It's answered in Book 6. I love it. I get to say Book 6 instead of Book 5 now. Will we see more Roran? Eventually. As for whether you see Roran and Murtagh, no comment. Will we see Riders Reborn? Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, that's a large part of some future stories. Will we get Angela lore? I feel like she could have killed Galbatorix and just didn't feel like it. Yeah, well, she's a difficult character to write because, she's very fun to write, but because she breaks the fourth wall to a degree, for those who don't know, Angela was based on my sister, Angela. Because she breaks the fourth wall to a degree, she has, not only does she have plot armor, she knows she's in a story and can break the story itself. So, yes, she could have killed Galbatorix, but that would have made for a very bad story. That said, I do have an entire book planned around Angela, and it's something that it's very high on my list of books to write because it takes place before some of these other big stories I want to write. And that's also the difficult thing. I have my big storylines, and then I have a couple of one-off side books I want to write, and it's just a question of time, energy, and effort. All right, how do you pronounce Glader? I think I just answered that. It's just like it. I would say that it's said just as it's written, but of course you have to know the rules of the ancient language, but it's said Glader. Alrighty here. Could one of the 217 wild dragon eggs in the vault bond with a rider? Not unless that egg then was added to the magical compact between riders and dragons. That's not to say that one of those wild dragons couldn't hatch and form a deep and abiding friendship with someone, but it's not actually going to be the bond between rider and dragon unless they are magically joined. And then you have to get the Gedway Ignacia, and, it changes both rider and dragon, hopefully for the better. But whether or not Aragon and the Eldonari and the elves decide to include more eggs in the rider bond is something we'll have to look at in the future. Because some of those there are eggs there also that were already set up to be, bonded with an elf or a human, and of course now a dwarf or an Urgle. But and that may be enough. The other thing is you don't want too many wild dragons or riders and dragons flying around the land. They're a lot to feed, and they actually raise some problems of their own. So you have to balance the number of riders with the number of wild dragons to basically keep the peace. And if you think about it, these wild dragons are going to be growing up with no elder dragons to guide them aside from the Eldonari and aside from Saphira and perhaps Fiernan on occasion, or Thorn. So that means that they might be rather unruly. It's an interesting challenge. Okay, do I foresee any Urgles becoming riders now that they're able to? Of course, they have to become riders. That's part of the change Aragon made to this bond between dragons and the rest of the species. If Urgles don't become riders, there's a major problem. So you will be seeing and Urgle Dragon Rider, and maybe more than one in the future, depending how far down the timeline I go. But yes, absolutely, the dwarves and the Urgles will be coming bonded with the dragons, and that's very important that they do so. Could a weird cat become a rider? Not at the moment, because weird cats are not part of that magical contract. That would have to change in the future. All right, do I still live in Montana? I do. I've lived here pretty much my entire life, and I have no plans to move. It's a beautiful place. It's nice and isolated. If you are a writer, that might appeal to you. And the scenery is absolutely jaw-dropping. And it's, mentally it's a big benefit to just be able to look out and see the light moving across the mountains every day. It's beautiful, it's inspiring, it's good for the mental health. And I do get the occasion, whenever I release a book, to travel the world and see more than my fair share of airports and hotel rooms and cities. I'm not a fan of cities. I love visiting. I love interacting with fans and booksellers and publishers. It's a great privilege, but personally, I'm not very comfortable in cities. Given how I grew up, my sense of personal space is like 20 feet, and in cities that doesn't really work. So I've tried it. I've lived in, I had an apartment in Edinburgh one time, New York City, down in San Diego, Spain. I've tried it. It's never really worked for me. So cities are great places to live, but I'm a country boy. Okay, let's see what else we have here. These are just, I haven't done a Q&A in a long time, and this is a lot of fun. Let's see. Will the Gilded Lilies spread? Yes, they will, and that is a story point in another book, actually. Do I play World of Warcraft? No, and if I did, you wouldn't be getting any more books out of me. Actually, I'm tempted by Starfield, but I don't have time. I've heard good things, but I just don't have the time. I haven't even had time to play Minecraft, and I love Minecraft. So look, if you want to write and play games, don't have kids. That said, I love having kids, so, have kids if you like kids. But don't plan on being able to play video games. Okay, is a dragon able to be truly evil, or would it be more of a rider influence? Dragons are like any other living creature. There are good dragons and bad dragons and everything in between. If you read The Fork, the Witch, and the Worm, I'm assuming maybe you haven't. There is a dragon in that story who might very well be considered evil. So, yes, dragons can certainly be malevolent as much as any other creature. Good question. Whoops. Sorry about that. Is there an audiobook for the new book? Absolutely. All of my books have audiobooks. The audiobook for Murtagh, at least in the English language world, is releasing same day as the hardcover print release. It is being read by Gerard Doyle, who read all of the other books in the Inheritance cycle. And actually, I may be doing some public events with Gerard in New York City with the launch of the book, and possibly also at New York Comic Con. So that should be fun. Gerard is a great guy. Sometimes I intentionally write difficult made-up words in the books just to make him squirm in the audiobook recording booth. But he's an absolute amazing person, and I'm happy to have him reading the books, and it's cool that he gets to come back for this book. Also, of special note, for my past 2 books, and now with Murtagh, so this is 3 books in total, my awesome fan, Malta Wegman, has been composing music for the audiobooks. So whenever there's a break in the book, at different sections of the book, at the beginning and the end, we have like this cinematic music in it. I love what he did for both To Sleep in a Sea of Stars and Fractal Noise, and now what he's come up with Murtagh is it's epic, it's bittersweet, it's eerie, it adds a lot to the book. So that's something cool you can look forward to. And one of the reasons I like doing that, by the way, is that all of my recent books have had art in them. I did all the interior art for Fractal Noise and Murtagh, and then my assistant, Manuela, did a bunch of art for To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, and I did a little bit as well. But if you're listening to the audiobook, you don't have access to that, or you get it as a PDF with the audiobook, but it's not the same thing as getting to see it as you go through a physical book. So my thought is having the music in the audiobook is the audio equivalent of art pieces. So that's really something I like doing. Unfortunately, the publishers have been willing to go along with me. But yeah, all of my books always have an audiobook release with the hardcover release. At least in English. All right, do I remember when you sold my first book? Yeah, my very first presentation was in the public library in Livingston, Montana, and I sold a couple of books there. I did the presentation when I was 17-ish. Yeah, 17. I was dressed in medieval costume and nervous as all get out. The presentation was way too long because I didn't know what I was doing, but I sold a couple of books. And then the next day I had to go to the local high school and do 2 back-to-back presentations for the entire school in the school library dressed in that medieval costume. And I literally had never been in a public school in my life up until that point, and I walked in dressed in knee-high lace-up leather boots, billowy black pantaloons, a big black pirate belt, a billowy red swordsman shirt, and a black beret on top. So, I don't wear that anymore. But it was fun. Oh, right. Will I be introducing another world in the future? If you mean another fictional world, like the Fractalverse or the World of Aragon, probably not. I have my hands full. I do have a couple of one-off fantasy stories that maybe don't fit in the World of Aragon. But in general, the whole point of creating the Fractalverse and the World of Aragon is I can write pretty much any story I want to in either one, including real-world stories, since the Fractalverse includes, modern day. So, again, though, I'm just playing that by ear. Can you tell us about the woman with the teenage girl that got their fortune told? Main characters in another book. I suppose I'm going to have to actually write that book one of these days in order to stop people asking. What books or TV shows are you enjoying these days? I'm going to take a small sip of water here before I answer that because my throat is giving out. 1 second. All right. And yes, I just use old Pellegrino bottles for water bottles. Books or television shows? Mostly books on screenwriting at the moment, since that feels like a relevant topic for me. I haven't had time to really read any fiction for a little while. As far as movies and television shows, my wife just showed me Van Helsing for the first time, which is such a silly, stupid film, and I enjoyed every moment of it. It was delightful. I was predicting lines of dialogue before they happened, and it was a lot of fun. I think we might try watching the new Barbie film here in the next day or two. But mostly I've been showing my wife Deep Space Nine, because I got her caught up on the original series Star Trek and Next Generation, and now we're watching Deep Space Nine, which she hasn't seen. And I actually haven't watched Deep Space Nine since it originally aired, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and I still think it may be my favorite Star Trek. All right. The only thing is, back in the day, the series, each season of Star Trek was so big. I mean, each season has like 26 episodes, so it just takes forever to get through each season. All right, James, who won the Fractalverse Journal, asks, can magic be used without speaking the word first? If you're asking, that's essentially wordless magic. And yes, you can do that. There's 2 ways to do it. You can either cast magic without any words at all and simply use your intention to guide the magic. But it's dangerous, and that's why the ancient language was created and enchanted in the first place, was to provide a framework to constrain the energy of the spells. The other way you can do it is to simply mentally say the words of the ancient language that you sort of form your spell without, uttering them out loud. That also works. It's a little more riskier than saying the words because your mind might switch tracks in the middle and your spell can go awry. But it's something used quite a bit by advanced spellcasters when they don't want to share their words or intentions with those around them. So if you're in a magical battle, for example, or just a battle in general, and you don't want people picking up the words you're using or what those words are supposed to do, you might just cast the spell in your head. Of course, in a battle, it can be really hard to concentrate, so saying the words might be a lot safer. There are a lot of pros and cons. Man, the questions just keep piling up here. Who are the strangers on Vrowengard? No comment. You might get a few clues in Murtagh, though. Do I read to my kids? Constantly. Never stop reading. They love books. All they want are books read to them. I have Little Blue Truck memorized at this point, among many, many others. I'm trying to think of any that I would recommend. I think I tweeted this at a point that reading Llama Llama Red Pajama... okay, so it was obviously written by someone who's not an American English speaker, because for it to rhyme, you have to say it pajama instead of pajama, okay? So you can go, if you want to have fun with it, you can read it Llama Llama Red Pajama, and then read the whole book in that style, which is horrendous. I have fun reading it in a Johnny Bravo voice, aka an Elvis voice, but that just cracks my wife up. One of my favorite books to read to the kids actually is a book called Hiawatha's Childhood. It's an excerpt from the poem Hiawatha, and it's illustrated with these beautiful watercolor illustrations. And I forget the guy who did it, a famous illustrator. You can still find the edition on Amazon, and it's absolutely lovely. Also a book called Grandfather Twilight by Barbara... Oh, I forget her last name. Really lovely for younger children. When will I start reading the Inheritance Cycle to my kids? I won't read it to them. It would be torture for me to read the Inheritance Cycle to my kids. I would much rather that they read it themselves when and if they want to. If they don't, that's fine. So, I'll let them discover it on their own. And then they can figure out what Daddy's been up to their whole lives. For folks tuning in, maybe revisit the status of the Aragon TV show. The short version is everything was on hold while the Writers Guild in Hollywood was on strike, and then, of course, the Actors Guild went on strike. The strike for the Writers Guild has just been resolved, so I am honestly waiting now to see. It literally just got resolved yesterday, so now things hopefully can move forward. We were just getting things off the ground when the strike initiated, and what we need to do is find a showrunner so that we can start writing the darn thing and then moving on to casting and production and all of those good things. But first thing is finding the showrunner. Showrunners are to television shows what directors are to film. So you need a good showrunner, and it needs to be someone who can work with me and who I can work with and who likes the material and has a good vision for it. Because if we don't get a good adaptation this time around, I can't see us getting another one for a very long time. So it really needs to be done right now. Does Nasawada come up in the Murtagh book? Of course she does. You think Murtagh goes an entire book without thinking about Nasawada? However, how she shows up, and occurs to him and this, that, and other, I will leave you to discover when you read the book. All right. Does Aragon become considerably stronger, or is he already maxed out? If you're talking about like the physical power he has access to, he may get physically stronger as he gets older, but in general, he's pretty much maxed out in terms of physical strength, and he may get a little stronger physically, but the only way he's going to get magically more powerful is A, through being smarter, and B, through the Eldonari giving him their strength. And if they don't do that, then, he's just a smart, strong rider, as you would have had a smart, strong rider in the past. And he wouldn't be exceptional necessarily in that regard. Aside from the fact that he does know the name of names, and that is truly a trump card in a lot of ways. And of course, he also knows how to draw energy from his surroundings, which is not something the writers shared lightly. So he's still an opponent and a magician that you should take seriously, but he wouldn't be massively overpowered if the Eldonari aren't there to funnel their energy into his spells. But keep in mind too that as Saphira gets bigger, she has access to a lot more strength and power, and that will continue to be in addition to Aragon's own abilities. Still going to be a To Sleep in a Sea of Stars movie? No. We switched gears on that one, switched lanes on that one, and To Sleep in a Sea of Stars will instead, hopefully, be adapted as a television show. Changing that contract from a film contract to a television contract took ages. Don't ask me why, it's Hollywood. But I like the people I'm working with. They're still interested in the project, and hopefully, now that the strike is resolved, that too will be moving forward. As for why it changed from film to television, the script that was produced as a film was just too rushed. There was too much to cram into a film. So we all collectively decided that it would work a lot better as a television series, more like a mini-series almost, and that's what we're shooting for. And hopefully there'd be multiple seasons, but To Sleep in a Sea of Stars probably would be one season just for that book. I want to know...
Could it go? Okay.
All right, technical difficulties resolved. Okay, so I think we're asking about Kadok and Tornak and all the others. Well, some of that is answered in Murtagh, but in general, the horses are doing well, and very happy that they're not being picked up by a dragon and flown through the air. Okay, how do I write an ending? Ooh. I mean, as well as I can. I do not see any reason to write a story or start a story unless I know what the ending is. I usually write a story because of the ending. Without it, there is no story. I mean, an ending, and there's a lot of ways to think about an ending. An ending could be the final image, the final paragraph, but I think of an ending as encompassing the final climactic moment of a story, as well as the coda that may or may not follow. So if I'm thinking of that final climactic event, that is the summation of the story. So without it, there isn't a story. And I try to make those climactic moments relevant to the journey the characters have gone through and where they're going and the problem or problems that they've needed to address personally, as well as the larger problem of the world around them that they are trying to fix. But ultimately, it has to be something that I feel and care about. With To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, without spoiling too much, the very final image of that book of the main character, Kira, it's something that had been with me for almost a decade. That's why I wrote the book, because I felt that. And with the inheritance cycle, I had the ending right from the very beginning. If you read Aragon, when Aragon has his fever dream after dragging Garrow back to Carvajal, his fever dream is the last scene in Inheritance. Now, I'll be honest, there were a couple of changes and I had to massage it a little bit to make it fit after I actually wrote the whole series, but the general idea held true from start to finish. So I think an ending, ideally, for me, the climactic moment should feel like a bunch of puzzle pieces slotting into place in an unexpected manner, but very satisfying manner that leaves you feeling awe, wonder, amazement, bittersweetness, takes your breath away, makes you feel something deeply for the character. And then, you wrap up as soon as makes sense after that and head on out of the story. It's funny because I saw people commenting that the end of To Sleep in a Sea of Stars felt similar to the ending of the Inheritance cycle, and I can see that. It was a fair point, but it wasn't intentional. The ending of Fractal Noise is very different, though, and the ending of Murtagh is very different. So I'll be curious how people react, especially to the ending of Murtagh. I really like the ending to Murtagh. Okay. We're gonna...
Yeah, if you have a few left, or we can wrap.
We have a few? Yeah. We'll get through the last few here, and then I'll do my own coda, speaking of endings. Okay, what literature inspired me to write Aragon? Just all the fantasy and sci-fi I read growing up, as well as some classical literature. Lots of, I suppose these are sort of dated authors at this point, but authors such as David Eddings, Raymond Feist, Tad Williams. Well, Tad is still writing good stuff. Ursula K. Le Guin, E.R. Edison, who did the Worm Ouroboros, Gormenghast by Mervyn Peake, lots of Jane Austen and Tolstoy and Dickens and things like that. So lots and lots of reading. Do I like receiving fan mail? I sure do, and there's even an address for it on my website, paolini.net.
Under frequently asked questions.
And yes, under frequently asked questions on paolini.net. Is Galbatorix's first dragon's Eldenari still around? No, because his first dragon was still fairly young when killed, and was killed, in an ambush. So there was no real opportunity for that Eldenari to be disgorged or, in a safe manner. So no, that Eldenari is not around. Have I ever thought of making Blodgarm a rider? He's my favorite character. No, I haven't. I think he's probably beyond the age when a dragon would normally choose an elf to become a rider. But a furry rider, that's something to think about. Okay. Glader said Saphira was a powerful dragon. How does Aragon compare to the old dragon riders? I mean, Aragon's young, but he has been doused with the wisdom of the dragons. He knows the name of names. He is definitely up there in terms of power, if not in personal experience. And he did manage to defeat Galbatorix, even if by unconventional means. So I wouldn't say Aragon ranks in the very top tier of riders yet, but he might get there, assuming he lives a couple centuries and doesn't do anything stupid to get himself killed in the meantime. What inspired you when creating your magic system in Alagasia? Well, the concept of true names is hardly new. I won't pretend to have invented that, because I didn't. It's a very, very old concept. Ursula Le Guin played with it. A lot of folklore and mythology plays with that idea. And I wanted to play with it as well because it ties into my love of reading and writing and language. As a writer, the idea that words and names have some intrinsic power is appealing and has a little bit of truth to it, even though it's not magical. When I started going down that path, though, I just wanted consistency as much as possible. I wanted limitations so that people couldn't just go around shouting at mountains and making the mountains fall down. In retrospect, I would have put a lot more limitations on my magic just for the sake of giving myself something interesting to do with the magic. I like the idea of scrolls and potions and incantations and a lot more limitations. But ultimately, with my magic system, everything that is possible with it derives from a couple of really simple ideas. The first one is that living creatures, doesn't have to be a human or an elf or a dwarf or a dragon, that living creatures can somehow manipulate energy and cause work in the world, changes in the world through that energy, through intention. And it doesn't even have to be conscious intention. One could theorize a plant could do it almost. And then as a corollary to that is whatever you do with magic takes the same amount of energy as if you were to do it through any other means, whatever those means might be, whether you're your own body or mechanical help or whatever. Everything takes conservation of energy, and everything takes the same amount of energy, no matter how you do it. Everything in the series with the system of magic springs from those two ideas. The ancient language is an additional layer of complexity added on top of that, but it's not necessary to the use of magic or the function of magic. So I like consistency as much as I can achieve it, and that is how the whole system came about. So great question, though. And I think we got one last question here.
Nope, you're good.
Okay, so thank you everyone for attending. I'm going to wrap up with just a few things here. So first of all, this is the shameless plug, which is to remind you that Murtag is releasing on November 7th this year. And also on the 7th, we are getting the illustrated edition of Aragon, which is fantastic. It's huge. It's got over 50 paintings and drawings in it, full color. The text is laid out in 2 columns like in a Bible or something. It's really, really awesome. The giveaway winners are going to be listed on my website, paolini.net. So you can go there and check that out. And of course, the winners will be alerted via email that they have won a special prize. Also, all of my tour dates for Murtag are on Paolini.net. They've also been posted on my socials, but Paolini.net is the place to find up-to-date info. There is ongoing information being posted about my European tour because that's been coordinated across a whole bunch of different countries and publishers, and everyone has their own schedule and plans, and so sometimes you'll see it says that I'm appearing as an example in Italy, but it may not have the specifics quite yet. Those will be added as we have them and shared. And of course, if you're looking for Fractalverse news, I would recommend bopping over to fractalverse.net, which has a ton of art and info for the Fractalverse. Again, thank you so much for being in the live stream and asking all these awesome questions. We hope to do more of these. Thank you so much, and I cannot wait for you to read Murtag.
Raise your hand.